Mina Murray's Journal, 24 July, Whitby. Lucy met me at the station looking sweeter and lovelier than ever, and we drove up to the house at the Crescent in which they have rooms. This is a lovely place. The little river, the Esk, runs through a deep valley which broadens out as it comes near the harbor. A great viaduct runs across, with high piers, through which the view seems somehow further away than it really is. The valley is beautifully green, and it is so steep that when you are near the high land on either side, you look right across it unless you are near enough to see down. The houses on the old town, the side away from us, are all red-roofed and seem piled up one over the other anyhow, like the pictures we see of Nuremberg. Right over the town is the ruin of Whitby Alley, which was sacked by the Danes, and which is the scene of the part of quote-unquote Marmion, where the girl was built up in the wall. It is the most noble ruin of immense size and full of beautiful and romantic bits. There is a legend that a white lady is seen in one of the windows. Between it and the town, there is another church, the parish one, round which is a big graveyard, all full of tombstones. This, to my mind, the nicest spot in Whitby, for it lies right over the town and has a full view of the harbor and all up the bay to where the headland called Kettleness stretches out into the sea. It descends so steeply over the harbor that the part of the bank has fallen away and some of the graves have been destroyed. In one place, part of the stonework of the grave stretches out over the sandy pathway far below. There are walks with seats beside them through the churchyard, and people go and sit there all day long looking at the beautiful view and enjoying the breeze. I shall come and sit here often myself and work. Indeed, I am writing now with my book on my knee and listening to the talk of three old men who are sitting beside me. They seem to do nothing at all but sit here and talk. All day. The harbor lies below me, with on the far side one long granite wall stretching out into the sea, with a curve outward at the end of it, in the middle of which is a lighthouse. A heavy seawall runs along its outside of it. On the near side, the seawall makes an elbow crooked inversely, and at its end too it has a lighthouse. Between the two piers there is an opening into the harbor, which then suddenly widens. It is nice at high water, but when the tide is out, it shoals away to nothing, and there is merely the stream of the Esk, running between banks of sand, with rocks here and there. Outside the harbor, on this side, there rises for about half a mile a great reef, the sharp of which runs straight out behind the south lighthouse. At the end of it is a buoy with a bell, which swings in bad weather and sends in a mournful sound on the wind. They have a legend here that when a ship is lost, bells are heard out at sea. I must ask the old man about this. He is coming this way. He is a funny old man. He must be awfully old, for his face is gnarled and twisted like the bark of a tree, He tells me that he is nearly 100 and that he was a sailor on the Greenland fishing fleet when Waterloo was fought. He is, I'm afraid, a very skeptical person. For when I asked him about the bells at sea and the White Lady at the Abbey, he said very brusquely, "I wouldn't fash measle about 'em, miss. Them things be all wore out. Mind, I don't say they never was, but I do say they wasn't like in my time. They be all very well for comers and trippers and the like, but not for a nice young lady like you. Them feet folks from York and Leeds, they that be always eating curd herrings and drinking tea and looking out to buy cheap jet, would creed aught. I wonder, Maisel, who'd be bothered telling lies to him. Even the newspapers, which is full talk. I thought he would be a good person to learn interesting things from, so I asked him if he wouldn't mind telling me something about the whale fishing in the old days. He was just setting himself to begin when the clock struck 6, whereupon he labored to get up and said, "I must gang again words home, miss. My granddaughter doesn't like to be kept waiting when the tea is ready, for it takes me time to cram a boon that agrees. For there be many of 'em, miss, and I lack belly timber sarily by the clock." He hobbled away, and I could see him hurrying as well as he could down the steps. The steps are a great feature on the place. They lead from the town to the church, and there are hundreds of them. I do not know how many, and they wind up in a delicate curve. The slope is so gentle that a horse could easily walk up and down them. I think they must originally have had something to do with the Abbey. I shall go home too. Lucy went out visiting with her mother, and as they were only on duty calls, I did not go. August. I came here an hour ago with Lucy, and we had a most interesting talk with my old friend and the 2 others who always come and join him. He is evidently the Sir Oracle of them, and I should think must have been in his time a dictatorial person. He will not admit anything and downfaces everybody. If he can't argue them, he bullies them, and then takes their silence for agreement with his views. Lucy was looking pretty sweetly pretty in her white lawn frock. She has got a beautiful color since she has been here. I noticed that the old man did not lose any time in coming and sitting near her when we sat down. She is so sweet with old people. I think they all fell in love with her on the spot. Even my old man succumbed and did not contradict her, but gave double share instead. I got him on the subject of the legends, and went off at once into a sort of sermon. I must try to remember it all and put it down. It be all fool talk, lock, stock, and barrel. That's what it be, and naught else. These bands and waifs and bogos and barguests and belderin, they be naught but airbleps. They and all grims and signs and mournings be all invented by parsons and ilsome burk bodies and railway touters and to skier and scutter halfwinds, and to get folks to do something that they don't want other inclined to. Makes me earful to think of them. Why, it's them that, not content with printing lies on paper and preaching them out of pulpits, does want to be cutting them on the tombstones. Look here all around you in what air you will. All of them, stains, holding up their heads as well as they can of their pride. is I can't. Simply tumbling down with the weight of the lies wrote on them. Here lies the body, or sacred to the memory, wrote all of them. And yet, in nigh half of them, there being no bodies at all. And the memories of them can't care to pinch a snuff about, much less sacred. Lies, all of them. Nothing but lies, of one kind or another. My Gog. But it be a queer scouterment of the day of judgment when they come tumbling up in their death sarks, all juped together and trying to drag them tombstones, stones. With them to prove how good they was. Some of them trembling and dithering and with their hands all dozened and slippery from lying in the sea that they can't even keep with their gurp about them. I could see from the old fellow's self-satisfied air and the way in which he looked around for the approval of his cronies that he was, quote-unquote, showing off. So I put in a word in to keep him going. Oh, Mr. Swales, you can't be serious. Surely these tombstones are not all wrong. Yabblins. There may be a good portion, few not wrong, save when where they make out the people too good. For there be folks that do think a balm bowl be like the sea, if it only be their own. The whole thing be only lies. Now, look you here. You come here a stranger and you see this Kirkgarth. I nodded, though I thought it better to assent, though I did not quite understand his dialect. I knew it had something to do with the church. He went on. And you conceit that all these stones be a boon folk that hapt here snod and snog? I sent it again. Then that be just where the lie comes in. Why, there be scores of these lay beds that be tomb as Dune's back-a-box on Friday night. He nudged one of his companions and they all laughed. And my Gog, how could they be otherwise? Look at that one. The aft, the beer bank. Read it. I went over it and read Edward Spenslaw, master mariner, murdered by pirates off the coast of Andres, April 1854, age 30. When I came back, Mr. Swells went on. Who brought him home? I wondered to have him here. Murdered off the coast of Andres, and you conceded his body lay under? Why, I could name ye a dozen whose bones lie in the Greenland seas above. He pointed northwards, or where the currents may have drifted them. There be the stones around ye. You can, with your young eyes, read the small print of the lies from ye here. This Braithwaite Lowery, I knew his father, lost in the Lively off Greenland in 20, or Andrew Woodhouse, drowned in the same season in 1777, or John Paxton, drowned off Cape Farewell a year later, or old John Rawlings, whose grandfather sailed with me, drowned in the Gulf of Finland in 50. Do you think all these men will have to make a rush to Whitby when the trumpet sounds? I have me antheroms aboot it. I tell ye that when they got here, they be Jocelyn and Jocelyn one another way, that it'd be like a fight up in the ice in the old days, when we be at one another from daylight to dark and trying to tie up our cuts by the Aurora Borealis. This was evidently local peasantry, for the old man cackled over it, and his cronies joined in with gusto. But, I said, surely you are not quite correct, for you start on the assumption that all poor people or their spirits will have to take their tombstones with them on the day of judgment. Do you think that will be really necessary? Well, what else would be these tombstones for? Answer me that, miss. To please their relatives, I suppose. To please their relatives, you suppose? This, he said with an intense scorn. How will it be pleasure their relatives to know that lies is wrote over them, and that everybody in the place knows that they be lies? He pointed to a stone at our feet, which had been laid down as a slab, on which the seat was rested, close to the edge of the cliff. Read this lies on that stone, he said. The letters were upside down to me from where I sat, but Lucy was more opposite to them, so she leant over and said, Sacred to the memory of George Cannon, who died in the hope of glorious resurrection on July 29th, 1873, falling from the rocks in Kettleness. This tomb was erected by his sorrowing mother to her dearly beloved son. He was the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. Really, Mr. Swells, I don't see anything very funny in that. She spoke her comment very gravely and somewhat severely. You don't see anything funny? That's because you don't go on. The sorrowing mother was a hellcat that hated him because he was a crude. A regular lamenter he was. And he hated her so that he committed suicide in order that she mightn't get insurance she put on his life. He blew nigh the top of his head off with an old musket that they had for scaring crows with. Torn for scaring crows then, before it brought the plagues and the delps to him. That's the way he fell off the rocks. And as to hopes of a glorious resurrection, I've often heard him say, Mazel, that he hoped he'd go to hell, for his mother was so pious that she'd be sure to go to heaven, and he didn't want to add on where she was. Now, isn't that stone at any rate? He hammered it with a stick as he spoke. A pack of lies? And won't it make Gabriel cackle when Geordie comes panting to the gate grates with a tombstone balanced on his hump, and has to be took as evidence? I did not know what to say, but Lucy turned to the conversation as she said, rising up, Oh, why did you tell us of this? It is my favorite seat, and I cannot leave it. And now I find I must go sitting over the grave of suicide. Well, that won't harm you, my pretty, and it may make poor Geordie gladsome to have so trim a lass sitting on his lap. That won't hurt ye. Why, I've set off, and on not 20 years past, it hasn't done me no harm. Don't ye fash about them as lies under ye, or that doesn't lie there neither. It'd be time for ye to be getting scared when you see the tombstones all running away with, and the place is bare stubble field. Oh, there's the clock. I must gang. My service to ye, ladies. And off he hobbled. Lucy and I sat a while, and it was all so beautiful before us that we took hands as we sat, and she told me all over again about Arthur and their coming marriage. That made me just a little heartsick, for I haven't heard from Jonathan for a whole month. The same day. I sat up here alone, as for I am very sad. There was no letter from me, and I hope there cannot be anything the matter with Jonathan. The clock has just stricken 9. I see the lights scattered all over the town, sometimes in rows where the streets are, and sometimes singly. They run right up the Esk and die away in the curve of the valley. To my left is the view of the cut off by a black line of roof of the old house next to the abbey. The sheep and lambs are bleating in the field away from behind me, and there is a clatter of donkeys' hooves up the paved road below. The band on the pier is playing a harsh waltz in good time, and farther along the quay, there's a Salvation Army meeting in the back street. Neither of these bands hears the other, but up here I hear and see them both. I wonder where Jonathan is and if he's thinking of me. I wish he were here. Dr. Seward's diary. 5 June. The case of Renfield grows more interesting more I get to understand the man. He has certain qualities very largely developed: selfishness, secrecy, and purpose. I wish I could get it to think what is the object of the latter. He seems to have some settled scheme of his own, but what it is, I do not know. His redeeming quality is a love of animals, though indeed he has such a curious turn at this. I sometimes imagine he is only abnormally cruel. His pets are of odd sorts. Just now, his hobby is catching flies. He has at present such a quantity that I've had myself to expostulate. To my astonishment, he did not break out into fury as I expected, but took the latter in simple seriousness. He thought for a moment and then said, "May I have 3 days? I shall clear them away." Of course I said that would do. I must watch him. He has turned his mind now to spiders and has got several big fellows in a box. He keeps feeding them as flies, and the number of the latter is becoming sensibly diminished. Although he has used half his food in attracting more flies from outside of his room. 1 July. His spiders are now becoming as great a nuisance as the flies, and today I told him that he must get rid of them. He looked very sad at this, so I said that he must clear out some of them at all events. He cheerfully acquiesced in this, and I gave him some the same time as before for the reduction. He disgusted me much while with him, for when a horrid blowfly, bloated with some carrion food, buzzed into the room, he caught it, held it exultantly for a few moments between his finger and his thumb, and before I knew what he was going to do, we put it in his mouth and ate it. I scolded him for it, but he argued quietly that it was very good and very wholesome, that it was life, strong life, and gave life to him. This gave me an idea, or the rudiment of one. I must watch how he gets rid of the spiders. He has evidently some deep problem in his mind, for he keeps a little notebook in which he keeps jotting down something. Whole pages of it are filled with masses of figures, generally single numbers added up in batches, and the total is added up in batches again, as though he were, quote-unquote, focusing some account, as the authors put it. 8 July. There is a method in his madness, and the rudimentary idea in my mind is growing. It'll be a whole idea soon, and then, unconscious celebration. You'll have to give the waltz to your conscious brother. I kept away from my friend for a few days so that I might notice if there were any change. Things remain as they were, except that he has parted with some of his pets and got a new one. He has managed to get a sparrow and has already partially tamed it. His means of taming is simple, for already the spiders have diminished. Those that do remain, however, are well fed, for he still brings in the flies by tempting them with his food. 19 July. We are progressing. My friend now has a whole colony of sparrows, and his flies and spiders are almost obliterated. When I came in, he ran to me and he said he wanted ask me a great favor, a very, very great favor. And as he spoke, he fawned on me like a dog. I asked him what it was, and he said, with a sort of rapture in his voice and bearing, "A kitten." A nice, little, sleek, playful kitten that I can play with and teach and feed and feed and feed. I was not unprepared for this request, for I had noticed how his pets went on increasing in size and vivacity. But I did not care that his pretty family of tame sparrows should be wiped out in the same manner as the flies and spiders. So I said I would see about it and asked if he would not rather have a cat than a kitten. His eagerness betrayed as he answered, "Oh yes, I would like a cat." "I only asked for a kitten lest you should refuse me a cat." "No one would refuse me a kitten, would they?" I shook my head and said that at present I feared it would not be possible, but that I will see about it. His face fell, and I could see a warning of danger in it. There was a sudden, fierce, sidelong look which meant killing. The man is an undeveloped, homicidal maniac. I shall test him with the present craving and see how it will work out then. I shall know more. "10 p.m. I visited him again and found him sitting in the corner brooding. When I came in, he threw himself on his knees before me and implored me to let him have a cat, that his salvation depended upon it. I was firm, however, that I told him that he could not have it, whereupon he went without a word and sat down, gnawing his fingers in the corner where I had found him. I shall see him in the morning early. 20 July. Visited Renfield very early, before a tenant went his rounds. Found him up and humming a tune. He was spreading out a sugar which he had saved in the window and was manifestly beginning his fly catching again, and beginning it cheerfully and with a good grace. I looked around for his birds, and not seeing them, I asked him where they were. He replied without turning around that they had all flown away. There were a few feathers about the room, and on his pillow a drop of blood. I said nothing, but went out and told the keeper to report to me if there were anything odd about them during the day. 11 a.m. The attendant has just been to see me to say that Renfield has been very sick and has disgorged a lot of feathers. "My belief is, doctor," he said, "that he has eaten the birds, and he just took and ate them raw." "11 p.m. I gave Renfield a strong opiate tonight, enough to make even him sleep, and took away his pocketbook to look at it. Oh, the very thought has been buzzing about my brain lately is complete, and the theory proved. My homicidal maniac is of a peculiar kind. I shall have to invent a new classification for him, and call him a zoophagous, or life-eating maniac. What he desires is to absorb as many lives as he can, and he has laid himself out to achieve them in a cumulative way. He gave many flies to one spider and many spiders to one bird, and then wanted a cat to eat the many birds. What would have been his later steps? It would almost be worthwhile to complete the experiment. It might be done if there were sufficient cause. Only for sufficient cause. Men sneered at vivisection, and yet look at its results today. Why not advance science to its most difficult and vital aspect, the knowledge of the brain? Had I, even in secret of one such mind, did I hold the key to the fancy of even one lunatic? I might advance my own branch of science to a pitch compared with which Burton Sanderson's physiology or Ferrier's brain knowledge would be as nothing. If only there were a sufficient cause. I must not think too much of this, or I may be tempted. A good cause might turn the scale with me, for I may not be of an exceptional brain. Congenitally? How well the man reasoned. Lunatics always do within their own scope. I wonder at how many lives he has valued as a man. Or if at only one. He has closed the account most accurately, and today begun a new record. How many of us begin a new record with each day of our lives? To me, it seems only yesterday that my whole life ended with my new hope, and that truly I began a new record. So it shall be until the great recorder sums me up and closes my ledger account with the balance to profit or loss. Oh, Lucy. Lucy, I cannot be angry with you. Nor can I be angry with my friend whose happiness is yours, but I must only wait on hopelessness and work. Work. If I could have as strong a cause as my poor mad friend there, a good unselfish cause to make me work, that would indeed be happiness. Mina Murray's Journal, 26 July. I am anxious, as it soothes me to express myself here. It is like whispering to oneself and listening at the same time. And there's also something about the shorthand symbols that makes it different from writing. I am unhappy about Lucy and about Jonathan. I had not heard from Jonathan for some time, and I was very concerned. But yesterday, dear Mr. Hawkins, who was always so kind, sent me a letter from him. I had written asking him if he had heard, and he said the enclosed had been just received. It is only a line dated from Castle Dracula, and says he is just starting for home. That is not like Jonathan. I did not understand it, and it makes me uneasy. Then, too, Lucy, although she is well, has lately taken to her old habit of walking in her sleep. Her mother has spoken to me about it, and we have decided that I'm to lock the door of our room every night. Mrs. Westenra has got an idea that sleepwalkers always go out on roofs of houses and along the edges of the edges of cliffs, and then get suddenly wakened and they fall over with a despairing cry that echoes all over the place. Poor dear. She is naturally anxious about Lucy, and she tells me that her husband, Lucy's father, had the same habit, that he would get up in the night and dress himself and go out if he were not stopped. Lucy is to be married in the autumn, and that she was already planning out her dresses and how her house is to be arranged. I sympathize with her, for I do the same, only Jonathan and I will start in life in a very simple way, and shall have to try to make both ends meet. Mr. Holmwood, he is the Honorable Arthur Holmwood, only son of Lord Godalming, is coming up here very shortly, as soon as he can leave town, for my father is not well, and I think dear Lucy is counting the moments till he comes. She wants to take him up in the seat on the churchyard cliff and show him the beauty of Whitby. I dare say it is the waiting which disturbs her. She will be all right when he arrives. (27 July). No news from Jonathan. I am getting quite uneasy about him. Though why I do not know, but I do wish that he would write, if it were only a single line. Lucy walks more than ever, and each night I am awakened by her moving about the room. Fortunately, the weather is so hot that she cannot get cold. But still, the anxiety and the perpetually being awakened is beginning to tell on me, and I'm getting nervous and wakeful myself. Thank God Lucy's health keeps up. Mr. Holmwood has been suddenly to ring to see his father, who has been taken seriously ill. Lucy frets at the postponement of seeing him, but it does not touch her looks. She is a trifle stouter, and her cheeks are a lovely rose pink. She lost the anemic look which she had. I pray it will all last. 3 August. Another week gone by and no news from Jonathan. Not even Mr. Hawkins, for whom I have heard. Oh, I do hope he is not ill, for surely he would have written. I looked at the last letter of his, but somehow it does not satisfy me. It does not read like him, yet it is his writing. There's no mistake of that. Lucy has not walked much in her sleep last week, but there's an odd concentration about her which I do not understand. Even in her sleep, she seems to be watching me. She tries the door, and finding it locked, goes about the room searching for the key. 6 August. Another 3 days and no news. The suspense is getting dreadful. If I only knew where to write or where to go, I should feel easier. But no one has heard a word from Jonathan since that last letter. I must only pray to God for patience. Lucy is more excitable than ever, but is otherwise well. Last night was very threatening, and the fishermen say that we are in for a storm. I must try to watch it and learn the weather signs. Today is a gray day, and the sun, as I write, is hidden in thick clouds, high over Kettleness. Everything is gray, except for the green grass, which seems like emerald amongst it. Gray earthly rock, gray clouds, tinged with a sunburst at the far edge, hang over the gray sea into which the sand points stretch like gray figures. The sea is tumbling into which the sand in over the shallows and the sandy flats in with a roar, muffled in the sea mist drifting inland. The horizon is lost in a gray mist. All vastness, the clouds are piled up like giant rocks, and there's a quote-unquote brool over the sea that sounds like some patches of doom. Dark figures are on the beach here and there, and sometimes half shrouded in the mist and seem, quote, men like trees walking, unquote. The fishing boats are racing for home and rise and dip in the ground and swell as they sweep into the harbor, bending to the scuppers. Here comes old Mr. Swales, and he is making straight for me, and I can see by the way he lifts his hat that he wants to talk. I've been quite touched by the change in the poor old man. When he sat down beside me, he said in a very gentle way, "I want to say something to you, miss." I could see he was not at ease, so I took the poor old wrinkled hand in mine and asked him to speak fully. So he said, leaving his hand in mine, "I'm afraid, my dearie, that I must have shocked you by all the wicked things I've been saying about the dead and such like for weeks past, but I didn't mean them, and I want you to remember that when I'm gone, we all folks that be dabbled, and with one foot abaft in the crockpool, don't altogether like to think of it, but we don't want to feel scared of it. And that's why I've taken to making light of it, so that I cheer up my own heart a bit. But Lord, love ye, miss, I ain't afraid of dying. Not a bit, only I don't want to die if I can help it. My time must be nigh at hand now, and for I be old. And 100 years is too much for any man to expect. And so I'm nigh it that the old man is already whittling his scythe. You see, I can't get out of the habit of coughing about it all at once. The chafes will wag, and as they be used to it. Someday soon the angel of death will sound his trumpet for me, but don't ye do any greet, my dearie. For as he saw that I was crying, if he should come this very night, I'd not refuse to answer his call, for life be, after all, only a waiting and something else that we're doing, and death be all that we can rightly depend upon. But I'm content, for it's coming to me, my dearie, and coming quick. It may be coming while we be looking and wondering. Maybe that it's in that wind that's over the sea that's bringing in lost and wreck, and sore distress and sad hearts. Look, look, he cried suddenly. There be something in the wind, and in the host beyond it that sounds and looks and tastes and smells like death. It's in the air I feel coming, Lord. Make me answer cheerful when my call comes. He held his arms up devoutly and raised his hat. His mouth moved as if he was praying. After a few minutes' silence, he got up and shook hands with me and blessed me and said goodbye and hobbled off. It all touched me and upset me very much. I was glad when that Coast Guard came along with spyglass under his arm, and he stopped to talk with me as he always does, but all the time kept looking at a strange ship. I can't make her out, he said. She's a Russian by the look of her, but she's knocking about in the queerest way. She doesn't know her mind a bit. She seems to see the storm coming, but can't decide whether to run up north in the open or to put in here. Look there again. She is steered mighty strangely, for she doesn't mind the hand of the wheel. Changes about with every puff of the wind. We'll hear more of her before this time tomorrow.